When COVID-19 started, our next guest studied the 1918 flu pandemic to see how architecture and design changed in the wake of that event. I'm Matt Thomas with Nanovision, Nanowall's platform for discussing all things opening glass walls. Welcome to the first in a series of talks with one of the people who has been most influential in shaping the building industry. He doesn't just design homes, he builds entire cities. I'm talking about architect, urban planner, and design visionary Andres Duany. He's here to share his unique perspective on how the pandemic has changed architecture and the impact it will have on how we live in the coming decades. Hello, Andres. Thanks for joining us today. To start things off, what changes do you see in residential design because of the pandemic?
What's coming up is that there's some parts of life that we have not given enough emphasis to. One is how healthy it is to have sun and air and outdoors and breezes. And then how socialization, the areas of socialization need to be specifically designed, controlled, so that they occur at the right place in the dwelling. And then the third thing is that people are at home a lot. They're at home working, and they're at home living, extended families. And so the floor plans that we've been doing lately change pretty radically. Now, this is a generic aesthetic. This is an aesthetic that I think is both modern and traditional, and it could have happened in most of the Sun Belt. And frankly, these ideas are warm weather ideas, as you can see by the palm trees. So these are the houses. This is a generalized house that we've designed. This is a floor plan that looks different than most. First, the street is on the right. You see that the garages are split, and the garages are much bigger than necessary. And what's envisioned is that one or both can be transformed into an office. We think that actually the garage, instead of being the back of the house, is a very good candidate for being the front of the house as a workplace, because it's really like a loft. And what we found is that working in the kitchen or working on the dining room table and so forth is not all as cracked up to be. But the garage has potential, so we made them larger. We gave them a tall ceiling. We gave them a great garage door, and they're wider. And we also split them so you can convert one and not the other. You know, when you have a two-car garage, you have to convert both. So that's the first thing that's different. The second one is that between the garages, there's a place where you wait outdoors. So you don't necessarily bring people into your house, but you can still sit down and have a conversation. And that's what you're seeing, these two benches facing each other, which, by the way, they do have ventilation, which I'll show you later. Then the vestibule has to be taken seriously because it's a cleanup room. This is where you leave things behind and wash your hands. And in this case, it would have a UV light, to clean up, which is disinfects things. But frankly, why not have a really decently designed, serious vestibule where you can leave a lot of stuff behind and wash your hands? And by the way, you enter from the garage through that vestibule. Then you enter the dwelling, and there's a kitchen to the right, and that kitchen is like other kitchens, except that it has workstations. Okay, so that's the kitchen now. Before I go into the living room, let me show you that we actually split the bedrooms into the different corners. You see them here, 1, 2, 3. They're not along a corridor. When you have all your bedrooms along a corridor, you're too social. You don't have that feeling of isolation that you should have when you're locked in, when you're locked down. So these bedrooms were carefully designed to be like studio apartments. As you can see, you enter. There are places to sit by the window. There's a serious place to watch television. There's a serious place to work. Of course, there's the bed. There's an enormous closet. for all your storage. You don't share the storage with anybody else in a quite large bathroom. So this is a bedroom, but it is a bedroom that's like a studio apartment. Here's the other bedroom, and then there's the third bedroom here. This one, of course, could be convertible to something else. Of course, there's a laundry, etc. But it's a psychological distancing that's important with these bedrooms. Then right in the middle of the house is a living room and a dining room. But notice, and this is a courtyard house, but instead of having the courtyard in the middle, the living room is between two spaces, right? One of which is labeled as a pool and the other one's a garden. So when you open the doors, very substantially, these are window walls that you would just move right out of the way. You get a space that's a full 50 feet wide. It's almost like being outdoors from one side to the other, and the paving is shared, so it feels not only very large, but because it has openings on both sides, you get a lot of cross ventilation. And we're envisioning that people are going to really begin enjoying outdoor space, which is private. Now notice that there's no yard in the back or on the sides in this house. That's a waste, because if you're going to be out there, if you're really going to live with your space, you need privacy. By the way, this very large space occurs in a standard 50 by 100 foot lot. Okay, so then we take the stairs up. And by the way, you should know that this space is quite high. It's a tall space. We take the stairs up, and here we are. That's the double height space, which feels like an outdoors between the two courtyards. You take the stairs up, and there's a large unassigned room, okay, with movable partitions. And that's where you actually make the places that you need. You could have a caregiver apartment. You could have an isolation bedroom. You could have a gym. You could have a workplace. You could have a dog run. You could have homeschooling. I think it's important to have a space which is separated from the others, and that you can actually program according to your needs. And the needs are becoming ever more complex for the houses. Notice too that there's a lot of outdoor space here in front of it. Now this veranda, so-called veranda, is not a porch on the first floor, it's above. Okay, the porch on the first floor is too sociable. You know, you're right there with the passerby. You want to actually look at the street, socialize with the street, provide activity to the street, but I think it's better if it's upstairs. And one of the things we might talk about, actually, because it might be coming up, if there's any social instability, you know, the street at certain times of night or sometimes gets dangerous, the first floor is pretty hermetic, but the second floor is actually quite safe. So that's the veranda. And you know, I've spent all my life putting porches on the first floor, but in this case, the porch is on the second floor, called the veranda. And this void open to below is there to provide the cross ventilation. It's above this space, and it's there to provide the cross ventilation that actually makes it safe to be outdoors. As you know, there are controversies about masks, there's controversies about vaccines. The only thing there's no controversy about whatsoever is that being outdoors in the fresh air is good for you, and that sunlight with vitamin D is good for you. And this house is all about that. This is the section, shows the veranda, the flex space with the garage below on the right. And then on the left is the great wall that opens up to the courtyards. And of course, by the way, the bedrooms also open out into the courtyard. They don't open out to the sides where it might be less safe and not private. This is the section, how you go from the living room to the flex space on top and then the veranda. And here you can see the ventilation that happens above the waiting place. And then here you can see that it has not much of a side. It's all about the front. It's all about the street. They don't have to be this style. I'm not showing them to you, but we've done them different styles. This is sort of the base case. This is made out of block and stucco and steel columns with steel railings. Pretty easy to do. And here they sit, 6 of them on 2 opposite streets. And you can see that they waste no space whatsoever. You know, it's a 50-foot lot, and there's quite a complex little society that you can work with there.
That's going to bring part 1 to a close. We'll pick things up on the other side with part 2, discussing multifamily projects and design. We'll see you then.